In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let us thank God for all the graces we received since the beginning of the semester. Let us ask the Holy Spirit to sustain us in our search for truth. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen.
Mary, seat of wisdom.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
So tonight we have two subjects. The first is to study motion, the phenomenon of motion. We already spoke about that last week when we speak about change, change, motion. And the second part will be about place and time, or space and time. Okay? So let us begin by the first, the notion of motion. Motion comes from Latin, to move, moveo, to move, movement, movement, motion. Motion is more than movement. You know, every movement is a motion, and not every motion is a movement. For example, when we pass from the non-knowledge of logic to the knowledge of logic, it is a change, it is a motion. It's not a movement. A movement is more concrete. Motion is more wide. So we'll study that now. Okay? So what is that? Aristotle writes, nature has been defined as a principle of motion and change. You remember us, what is nature? It is the essence as principle of activity, as principle of operation. Okay? And in the subject of it is the subject of our inquiry. He continues, we must therefore see that we understand the meaning of motion. For if it were unknown, the meaning of nature too will be unknown. Now that reflection, Aristotle proved the link between nature and motion. In fact, nature is the principle of motion. Remember, what is nature? Nature is the essence as principle of activity, operation, motion. So, motion is linked with nature. So we move, we act, we have operation, activities, in relation with what we are, with our essence, with our nature. That is, so if there was no motion, there will be no knowledge of the being. We know a being through his motion, through his activity. You know if your cat is living or not when your cat is able by himself to stand up and to run after a mouse. Okay? So I remember that the distinction I made last week between quiddity, you remember that? Essence, nature, and substance. You remember that? Yeah. It's important because those words will be used many times. Huh? So the quiddity, it is, what is that? Huh?
What is?
The what? It is the essence of the thing. For example, what is man? A rational animal. What is the essence of man? Is to be a rational animal. But what is the difference between quiddity and essence? In the quiddity, you have no relation with existence. For example, I can ask you what is a leprechaun, or what is a cyclops, or what is a unicorn, you know? They don't exist, but you know what it is. So that you know, you have the definition of that, but you do not affirm their existence. If now you speak about existence, what you will say about a leprechaun or a cyclops, you see, it does not exist. So when we speak about essence, a rational animal exists. That means he receives essence, a rational animality, man receive existence. So when we speak about what is a thing in regard with existence, we call that the essence. Now, if I look at the essence of anything, rational animal, I see that not every being acts the same way. Every being acts differently according to his essence. So the essence makes the animal or the person or the thing act as principle of operation. So when the essence is called a principle of operation or principle of activity, etc., principle of motion, it is called nature. So we say we must act according to our nature. And finally, that essence, that nature, exists in something, in somebody, in some animal, in some person, and that, but is under that, it is the substance, and the rest, it is the accident. So those notions are very important. Here, it is exactly what you say. I know the essence or the nature of a thing from its operation. I remember when Bartolomeo de los Casas took 14 Indians from San Domingo and brought them to Valladolid in Spain. We knew they were intelligent because they operate, and the operation making them human. It was the laughing. When they laugh, we say they are intelligent. So we discover the nature of a thing from its operation, like I discover your capacity from your activity. For example, how I can know if you understand logic, like when you play logic at the game, I can see. So it is the same. How I can know you speak Spanish, like when I listen to you. Suppose I am a director of a school. I need a teacher for music. So somebody arrive with it. Father, I offer my service as a music teacher. So I will take him to the class of music. I will see if he can read the music, if he can play. If he cannot read the music, he cannot play. We say, I think maybe you can teach physics or chemistry, but not music, So we know things from the operation, okay? I continue. The next passage is from Brother Benignus. Brother Benignus is a Christian brother who taught philosophy in New York, but he taught philosophy to students who prepare to become scientists. So it is interesting. We have his book in the library, and the way he teaches is not exactly the same way I teach to future theologians. What does he write? The question of nature of motion or change, is one of the most important questions in Thomistic philosophy. It is from the mobility or changeableness of nature that St. Thomas reasoned to the contingency and the non-self-existence of nature. Interesting. Here we have a link between philosophy of nature and metaphysics. St. Thomas, when he proved the existence of God, when we studied the existence of God and the attribute of God, he starts from the effect. What is the effect of the creation? No? The order in the world. So it is from the operation, from the effect, that we go to the cause, that we go to the principle of being. And the principle of being, it can be, in the case of operation, of motion. Motion and operation indicate that the thing is changing, passing from potency to act. So if I pass from potency to act, if I changing, can I affirm that I exist by myself? Because change expresses contingency. Contingency. Because what is necessary does not change. But what is contingent, change. So from the fact of the motion in the world, from the fact of the passage from potency to act in the nature, in St. Thomas will go to a being that is not changing, and everything depends on it. That means from the notion of change, of contingency, we go to the existence of God. It is one of the proofs we study next semester. And we start from motion. So motion is important. Operations are important because it is through that motion to change, to operation, to action, to that I can discover what are the reality of okay? So then I go on the other paragraph. He continues, he says, when Aristotle and St. Thomas write of motion, that means change, don't forget motion, change, okay? They do not limit the meaning of the term to local motion. That is important because the first thing, when we speak about motion, you think about a car starting from Cromwell going to Hartford, you know? For us it's motion. A plane, taking off, leaving the ground and going into the sky, you know? Motion, a cat running after a mouse. Well, that is local motion. But motion is much more extended in philosophy. Okay, continue. That is motion through space and from here and there. They intend by their term all real change from one terminus to another. What is the meaning of that? In every change, we start from point A, or state A, to another, to point B, or a new state. No. For example, of course, well, you start from Middletown to New Haven when you are going to New York. Okay? That is local motion. We start from a terminus here, a terminus aquo, from where we come, aquo. And you go to a terminus aqua, tower, to the end. Well, that is more local motion. But we can extend that to every kind of change. In every kind of change, we start from a situation. For example, you do not know what is logic. You ignore logic, for example. And after a certain time, you know logic. So there is a passage, there is a change from the terminus of the ignorance of logic to the knowledge of knowledge. So it is a passage from potency to perfection. That passage can be instantaneous. For example, the passage from life to death. Or the passage from non-life to life, it is instantaneous. There is no half-life. There is no half-death. I am I am living as long as I am not dead. It's the same for electricity. There is no half electricity. You are on the line or not, you know. When they put someone on the electric chair, they don't say half current. No, it is electricity or no. The current passes or does not pass at all. So it is a passage. So here we are, in fact, that explanation is a metaphysical explanation. The potency explains an absence of determination. Absence of determination, absence of perfection. And little by little, we are changing that absence of determination toward a perfect determination. And that is perfect, that is act. But between, we are passing from degree to degree to degree. Finally, we arrive. So we say we are becoming. Here, the passage between, it is we call the becoming. Sometimes in Latin, infieri. en French, en devenir, in becoming. Okay? I go back to the text. Thus, not only would the movement of a baseball from a pitcher to catcher be motion, but also with the production of a note from the accord, the changing of water from hot to cold, the expansion of a column of mercury because of a rise of temperature, the building of a house, the learning of a scientific principle by a student. So you see, the notion of change of motion is not only local. When you study, you are in motion. When you take a decision, you are in motion. When you have an emotion, you are in motion. Emotion, you are in motion. Okay? So we distinguish 4 kinds of changes. The first, it is the local. Well, the local we already have, from Middletown to New York, passing through New Haven, etc., Bridgeport, on the other places. Okay? The second is a substantial, first local, secondly substantial change. It is the case where there is a change of substance. For example, you are living and you die, and your body is no more you. Because it is a total new substance. There are trillions of cells there. Trillion of cells. And there is no more unity except accidentally. But the unity will disappear because the principle of unity is no more there, you know. So that is a substantial change, okay? You have an application of that in the Eucharist, no? Transubstantiation. It's a changing of substance. It's a substantial change. Under the appearance, stay the same. The appearance stay the same. It's the same when somebody died. Somebody died, sometimes we are, is he sleeping? He seems to sleep, but is that? Apparently it's the same, you know?
Change from life to death.
3, the third one is qualitative change. Attached to substantial change, you have corruption. The corruption of an animal, for example, die and change. Okay. So quantitative change, that is not difficult to understand. You are 2 feet high, after 3, after 4, you are 50 pounds, after that 60, 70, you know. That is physical, but you can be also intellectual, virtue. You can grow in virtue, etc. And the last one is qualitative and quantitative. On quality, virtue. You can progress in virtue. You can progress in knowledge, etc. On knowledge and virtue. You can acquire new habit. And quantitative, it is your volume, your height. So that is qualitative and quantitative. In fact, here, what is quantity and quality? They are pretty common in the substance. So the substance is the same, but the change is interesting. Every case here, you have the same substance. When I pass from Middletown to New York, it is I. When I pass from non-living to death, from living to death, it is I. When I become more virtuous, more learned, it is I. And when I begin to grow, to attain a certain volume, it is I. So that means the substance is permanent under the change. Substance is permanent and the change here. Okay? So let us continue our reflection on the motion. So in the wide sense, large, motion stands for any change, in Latin mutatio, any change, that means any passage from potency to act, from one state to another. That is the more universal notion of change. passage from potency to act, from one state of being to another state of being. Okay? Motion, it is widest meaning, signify any kind of operation. In fact, we have powers. I have the intellect, I have my senses, my imagination, I have many powers, my hand, etc. And those powers, when they are in operation, they start from non-being in operation to being in operation. That means every operation is a change. Every activity is a motion. Every activity is a motion. Okay? So in a wide sense, motion is any kind of change. But change is any transition. So from one thing to another thing. That is not difficult to understand. So now I continue. Motion, in a broadly sense, is any passage from potentiality to actuality. I give you 4 definitions from 4 authors, and all the time is the same thing. From potency to act, from potentiality to actuality. Okay? Now let us go to the next page. In the more strict sense now. Well, the first, it is the local motion. And we spoke about that just before, the local motion. But what is motion? It is a continuous and successive change. So we have 2 characteristics, continuous and successive change. For example, when you learn, when you study, there is a continuity between what you know before and what you learn and what you are learning now. It's the same for your body. When you grow, there is continuity. That is characteristic of change, is continuity, and it is successive. It's not everything in one instant. It is for the local, a strict sense. So motion, properly so called, signifies change which we perceive in a mobile being. Mobile being. Mobile comes from moveo in Latin, to move, to move, mobile, to move. Le V and le B, you know, they are the same. For example, Cuba or Cuba. It's difficult in Spanish to distinguish sometimes between V and B. Viva il Papa. Viva il Papa. Viva Coca-Cola. Viva. Vive.
We don't make any distinction.
No. But in French, and we try to make the distinction.
Yeah.
Okay. So motion is, strictest sense, is the change of place. I go from Montreal to Cromwell, from Paris to Rome, etc. That is a question. So now, next paragraph, the proper notion of motion. Aristotle starts his analysis of motion by distinguishing 3 modes of being. So if we to understand motion, we have to understand first what exists in the state of actuality and fulfillment only. Well, there is a 3 possibilities. We have potentiality, potency, you have act, and you have in the middle, in potentiality to act. So if there is a being that is completely perfect, does he need some motion? Does he need to change? No. So the act, a pure act, it is the one who is totally perfect, in which there is no change. Pure act. There is no passage from potency to act. Who is pure act? God. Okay? So God is pure act. So that's the first, what exists in the state of actuality of fulfillment only. And that is God. Okay? Pure act. Now, we can go to the extreme. We can say pure potency. Can pure potency exist?
No.
And in my mind. Like privation, you remember? It's prime matter is only in my mind. That means a pure potency will be a being without any determination. If a being has no determination, it does not exist at all. It does not exist at all. So that is the extreme. But in reality, in the mobile being, they are mixed with potency and act. And when a being is in potency, is not purely. For example, you are here in potency to become priest, for example, or to become the superior general of your congregation. You are in potency. That means you exist already. The being in potency, being in potency. When you see being, that means that potency is in something. There is someone, something, having the capacity to change, to become. And the passage, I told you, between potency and act is the becoming. So, what is potency? It is a being in potency. That means he exists, or it exists. It has a certain existence. For example, let us think about the children that will never exist, but they could exist. They are not in potency because they will never exist. We call that pure possible. They are. I give you another example. You have an oak tree. Oak tree. And the oak tree produces acorn. No? What is acorn? No? And that is to produce a tree. Okay? Seed. The seed. On 1 million of acorn, how many will become a tree? Maybe 10, maybe 100. The others are only oaks in a simple possible. Simple possible. Are called in potency those who will become in act. That is important. When you study theology, you will see the difference. The being that will never become. For example, suppose we have 10 seminarians and 2 will not become priests. The 2, when they are studying in my class, they are not in potency. They are only simple possible. Those who will become priests, they are in potency. Why we make that distinction? Because God knows not only what the thing will become, He knows also all the things that thing will never become and what they could become. You understand? No? That means, for example, suppose when I was 30 years old, I was in potency to become a missionary in Cameroon. Okay? I was in potency because I became a missionary. I can say I was in potency. But God knows not only what I was able to do, to become, He knows also all the other possibilities. Because nothing can stop His knowledge. Well, we study that when we speak about the omniscience of God. I speak about that because already when you speak about being in potency, we must make a difference between being in potency that will exist in the future and those who will never exist because simply possible. Okay? And finally, you have those who are in the middle. Now, motion is formed in several different categories of being. Categories of being. What are the categories of being? The 10 predicaments. Okay. And thus, the element of its definition must transcend the categories. The only available prior concept for defining motion are basing to being itself. Are those basic? In fact, when you speak about potency and that, becoming. What is underlying that? It is being. Being. That means existence. Any mode of existence. The 10 predicaments, the 10 categories are mode, being or mode of being. So every change, in fact, is a change of categories. You change your quality, you change your relation, you change your possession, you change your passion, your action, the 10 categories. That is the meaning of that. I continue. So emotion is situated midway between potentiality and actuality. Motion is here. Motion is the becoming. Motion is the passage from potency to act. Any kind of passage from potency to act is a... Therefore, the motion consists in incomplete act. Every motion, every movement is not complete. It will be complete only when it will become act. You understand? Huh? That means that during the movement, during the becoming, that is not complete. Because if it is complete, it stops. When I go to New York, when I am in New York, I stop. Because it was my goal to go to New York. But when I am in New Haven, it's not complete. So in fact, movement requires that the motion, that the being be incomplete. Incomplete. Because it is incomplete, imperfect, it is a possibility for motion. If it is complete, finish. Mm-hmm. I will not teach a mathematician, a doctor in mathematics, that 5 plus 7 equals 12. It's complete. Mm-hmm. But I can teach that to children in the first grade. Okay? In fact, here we study last class privation. A change implies some privation. In the measure there is privation, there is possibility for motion, for change. When it is complete, when it is perfect, there is no more becoming. It is. So, motion is linked with imperfection. Motion is linked with potency, with becoming. Okay? That means when I am in motion in everything, when I am in potency, because I am not totally realized. And only God is perfectly realized. That means all the others are in motion. Okay? I continue on page 129. I spoke about that. And just after that, the act of the being in potency, precisely as still in potency, as in potency, Aristotle said that, potency as in potency. That means as long as you stay in potency, as long as you stay in, you are not perfect, you are called to perfection. Okay? In fact, when something is complete, there is no more becoming. When you are ordained a priest, it's finished. You are ordained a priest. You are a priest. But before you are in becoming to be a priest. Okay. So the formal definition of motion, it is the line of reasoning left Aristotle to define motion as the actualization, the fact that the potency, little by little, is gradually actualized. Of what exists in potency, insofar it is in potency. For example, you build a house. As long as the house is not finished, all the pieces are not put together, as long as the house is imperfect, the house continues to be in potency. When the house is finished, like Saint Mark, we finished, now it's finished, it is complete, perfection. Okay? So potency exists an absence of perfection. Act is a perfection, acquired. Okay? Now, next page. So the material definition of motion. What is under every motion? It is the mobile being, or the mobile being, the mobile being. The formal is change. It is passage from potency to act. But what it is passing, it is the mobile being. So there is a being under that. It is what Mr. Heraclitus forgot. He said, change is essentially change. There is nothing. No, there is something, a mobile being. And that mobile being is passing from potency to act. As long as it's not in act, in perfection, it is in motion. Okay? I consider just after that, by manifesting the connection between the definition one obtained, the first demonstration in natural philosophy, which conclude that, well, that is very important. Motion is the pervasive property of all mobile being. All mobile being is in motion. It's a characteristic of every finite being. Every finite being, every motion. We are in, okay? And so properly exists in the thing move, not in the mover as such. That passage is excessively important for your study in theology. The motion is not in the mover, the motion is in the thing move, in the mobile. For example, you kick a ball, the motion is in the ball, it's not in you. And the motion is, because if it was not like that, the mover will change also. If the mover change, if God is the creator of the universe, he will change. That means the motion in the thing move does not imply that the mover is passing himself from potency to act. Well, I'll give you an analogy to understand that. I am teaching you. I am moving your mind to know. Do I move my mind to know? I know.
No.
So, you know, I am the mover. I am not passing from potency to act as a knower, because I know that. When you teach children at primary school, you say, 8 plus 7 equals 15. When you say that, do you pass from potency to act as a learner? No. But the children pass from potency to act. They learn something. So when God created the world, He's not moving. That means he is not changing, he's not passing from potency to act. That means, of course, when I move the ball, I pass from potency as a mover. But it's not necessary that the mover pass from potency to act, because what he does pass from potency to act. Otherwise, God will be passing from potency to act. That passage is very, very, very important. Okay? For theology. For theology. So now what kind of motion and classification of motion? So we have three types of motion. First, the local motion. I already spoke about that. You have that in the middle of the page. It is a case of contrary. In fact, in the local motion, we pass from Middletown to New York, through New Haven, etc. That is, it's not contradictory. To be in Cromwell and to be in New York, they are not contradictory, but they are contrary. The same thing as the water passing from cold to hot. It is not contradictory, it is contrary, opposition. Okay? We saw that in logic. Remember? Sweet memory. The two terms are opposed, they are incompatible. For example, hot and cold are not compatible, but they admit intermediary states we call contraries. The water can pass from 0 Celsius, 10, 20, up to boiling at 100 Celsius. There is possibility of intermediary. So what are the characteristics? First, continuous, unbroken. Secondly, successive. we have to pass for all the position, all the point. Secondly, thirdly, divisible by reason of the extension cross. That means measurable. If you want 3, we can write measurable. I can measure. If it is measurable, it is quantity. I can measure. And finally, corporeal. That means it implies some material reality, some body. We cannot speak about local motion about angel. Angel have no local motion. But I will not, you can read, I give you one page about, from Régis Jolivet, about movement. Well, I will not insist on that because, but you can read that to complete your formation. Okay? I go to page 131. So local motion of some sort is involved in all other motion. In fact, to understand all the other kind of motion, we have first to understand the local motion. Why? Because the other kind of motion are known by analogy. So I applied by analogy to other activity. For example, you study logic. You pass from the ignorance of logic to the knowledge of logic. It is a change, it is a motion. But I can speak about that by analogy with the local motion. So the local motion is the pattern for any kind of motion. The other are analogy. Okay? So the second is qualitative motion or alteration. Alteration is realized only in the third species of quality. You remember quality, sensible quality. Only these sensible qualities fit in the definition of motion as continuing and successive actualization of potency. For example, a quality. Suppose the quality of humility, somebody, or kindness, any virtue, if you want, or the capacity of playing the piano, the quality of pianist. Those things are continue. They are. It is little by little that you become a pianist. Little by little you become humble. You don't become humble in one instant. You don't become a pianist in one instant. You progress. Like I progressed from Middletown to New York. It is the same. I progress from absence of humility to humility. From not playing the piano to playing the piano. To not knowing English to able to talk and speak English. Okay? So, but the only this substantial substantial changes. You remember from life to non-life, okay, or from non-life to life, are preceded by alteration that dispose matter. That means many change, substantial change, happen with a preparation. For example, for men, okay, somebody die at the age of 85, 90, but that is prepared by some alteration. No, we lose our air, my muscle diminish. I walk slowly. There is alteration. Okay, they are preparing. But the actual generation of a new substance and the destruction of the old substance are instantaneous. The alteration are progressive. Of course, you look at yourself when you are 30, 40, 60, 70, it's changing. But you are still human being. The moment you will die, it will be a substantial change. Before it's an accidental change. You look at yourself, you will say, oh, I have gray hair. Oh, I have no more hair. That is accidental change, no? Okay? So,
Brother.
Yes.
There is a way I'm seeing this one you explain now. Accidental change. Is it not natural? That is supposed to be natural.
Natural change?
That is seeing myself, just the growing gray head.
But they are
Suppose it was
alteration.
natural, right?
They are natural, but they are alteration. They are change. Huh? When we are young, you have no wrinkle. Huh?
Wrinkles.
But after that, you see here, you know. So it's alteration. But it is accidental. That does not change your substance. But the day you die, that is a substantial change. Huh? Okay? And that we say here. So I continue on the generation and corruption. Huh? If you want the generation conception, and conception is in one instant. That means there is a moment where there is no life and there is life. We don't know when. We know that happened at least in the first cell. When we cannot say when, but we can see there is life because the cell, the first cell by itself, began to divide and to multiply by itself. That means it is a characteristic of life. You remember what the characteristic of life? Spontaneous movement from within. Okay? But the passage is, it is instantaneous. There is no half-life. No. There was no life and suddenly there is life. There was life and there is no more life. No, there is no, no, okay, my body can change, but my substance is either living or dead, okay? Or no more existent as my substance, okay? So, alteration, Now, the third one is quantitative motion, or augmentation or diminution, quantitative. Here, we must be attentive, it's not aggregation. For example, what we have as a person, with our body is growing. Now you were 12 years old, and you are now 13 years old. Well, of course, there is an augmentation. But that augmentation is not by aggregation. That means it is something from within. It's a growth coming from within. Aggregation, it would be, for example, the case of some stone in the sea, and on the stone, coral attached to the stone. And the stone is covered with coral. That is aggregation. But here we speak about quantitative motion. That means it is a growth, augmentation, or diminution, but the cause is from within. From within. Okay? Next page. So the augmentation exists only in the living being. In the dead being or in non-living being, there is aggregation. For example, a coral can become bigger and bigger and bigger by aggregation because stuff attached to that, like a rust, attack but for the living, it is within itself. The movement, the motion does not come from outside. Here we touch the characteristic of life. Maybe you remember that? Spontaneity and immanence. The characteristic of life. What spontaneity and immanence? Spontaneity, the movement comes from you. Your growth comes from you. You cultivate a flower. Do you every morning take the flower and stretch it for 1 inch? Or your mother took you when you were 2 years old? No. Now you grow from within. That is spontaneity. It's a characteristic of life. The second characteristic of life, what you take as a food, a material food or intellectual food, you become you. Assimilate, assimilation. What is digestion is assimilation. That is a characteristic of the living, the living being. Okay. Now, go to the next paragraph. The living being can be active or passive. Huh? So the motion can be action. For example, I pitch the ball, or I receive the ball, or I am I am struck. Huh? Suppose I saw that recently in the movie. Someone entered in a farm where there was ostriches. Of course, the ostriches were not happy to see that man. So what they did, they attacked him with their beak. So that man was hurt by them. That is passion. But the ostriches have pleasure to say, you were pay for your stupidity. So that is action. Action and passion,
Yes.
they are type of motion. So the motion we have in regard of our operation. You remember what is nature? Nature is the essence as principle of operation. So if I operate, I can do an action. But if I do an action, another receive the effect of that action. So action and passion, they go together. Okay? So they are local motion. There is, in fact, there is no action if there is no continuity. An action is a passage from potency to act. Why can act? When can I produce an action? Because I am in potency. As long as I am operating, I am in passive, I'm becoming, and when I finish, you write a paper, a reflection paper. So before you are in potency, when you are in action, you are passing from potency to act. And when you finish the paper, then you are inactive, common sense. And the paper is made. The paper, it was a blank page, and after is a written page. So it is in passion, it is written. And you write and is written, that every action goes with a passion, okay? I go now to...
So from efficient cause to the final cause. Right? We can say from the efficient cause to the final cause.
Okay, yes. In fact, every cause is efficient cause and final cause. They are motion. They are linked with causality. For example, if I have an agent, before I act, I was in potency. When I act, I am passing from potency to act. I am in motion. And when I finish, I am in act. I finished. I know. I did. I studied, etc. So every action is a passage. A passion is also a passage from potency to act. For example, when you listen to me, you are at the same time active and passive. Yes, you are passive in the sense you receive something. You are moved by my teaching, I hope. But you react to that, so you are in action also. So knowledge, in fact, is a passage from non-knowing to knowing. From impotency to know to the act of knowing. And studying is in between. Studying is a motion. Studying is a passage from non-knowing to know. In fact, that theory is applied to every material reality. Why? Because every material reality is changing. It's contingent. And by the fact it's contingent, it is changing. It is, anyway, even if, Father, I don't change at all. I told that to you last week. In 1 hour, we passed 1,000 miles. Now we are 1,000 miles farther than we were 1 hour before. So, because in 25 hours, you will turn 25,000 miles. So every hour, we pass in the universe 1,000 miles. Everything is moving. Even the liturgy, even the church is moving. Of course, there are some dogma that change. Your eye, for example, does not change. No? The substance of the doctrine of the church does not. But the expression, if you read attentively the history of the church, you will see that there was an evolution on the expression of the dogma. An evolution in the expression, in the interpretation of the Bible, because there is evolution, you know. But something does not change, but many things change. And that is normal. And the first reality in society, if you study sociology, is change. That is the first reality. Everything changes. Even Jesus, when he was on earth, he changed. He was a baby. We celebrate that at Christmas. And he was a man on the cross. He resurrected. And a few days we celebrate Christ the King. Change. Of course, as God did not change, but as a human being, he's a mobile being. When he was on earth, now, of course, that it is to express to you that change, motion is universal. In fact, but what is that? The utility of philosophy is to arrive to have some explanation able to explain almost everything. And that is metaphysics. Because in metaphysics we insist on the essential, on existence. And because everything exists, what we study about existence is applied to everything. For example, the principle of contradiction. Or the principle of causality, etc. Okay. I go next page. Well, when we speak about time, when we come back, we will see that time is also attached to change. Okay, so 19.8, page 133. Motion involves an element of infinity. In fact, by itself, motion has no limit. And in fact, that motion has no limit, it is a sign that motion is imperfect. It is because we are imperfect that we are in motion. It is because we don't possess all the truth, we don't possess all the virtue, that we are in progress toward the truth and the virtue. You know? In fact, God cannot progress. God cannot pass from potency to act. And for us, it's a perfection to pass from potency to act. But for God, it will not be a perfection, it will be an imperfection. You understand that? And because to pass from potency to act is a sign that we are finite, limited. But motion, by itself, in fact, motion does not imply any limit. There is always place for motion, for progress. You know? Why? There is a progress because man is intelligent. But even in nature, if you want, the notion of motion does not imply necessarily the limit of motion. The fact things change does not imply that they must stop changing. The concept of motion in itself does not imply a limitation to motion. That means motion is called for as long as the universe will exist, there will be motion. There will be change. Because there is change, there is no necessity. That is a proof the word is contingent. The word is contingent because it's not necessary, it is changing. Non-necessary. A thing that changes, a thing in motion, is a proof that it is not necessary. It is contingent. And now we have the question. If the thing is in motion, and that motion does not come from itself, must come from another. That's the principle of causality. And we come to the infinite, but we have arrived to a first, and the first must not be in motion. Because if the first is in motion, it cannot explain why the other are in motion. Because if the first was in motion, it needs to be moved by another, you know. And that is the first proof of the existence of God by St. Thomas. The proof through motion. Interesting to see how that the natural theology, philosophy of God, is linked with what we study now. So if you understand that, when you arrive to the study of God, it will be easy, because the demonstration of St. Thomas is based on that. Things that are changing in motion, and they cannot have the motion by themselves, they must have the motion by another. And finally, you have God, the first mover, the first mover.
And
Moving everything, but not moving himself. And now you understand why I told you just before, the motion in the thing does not imply the motion in the cause.
Yes.
That means the cause, even if it's producing a motion from potency to act, that cause is not necessarily passing itself from potency to act. That means God can be infinite, pure act, and He can produce finite being, without being himself finite. He can produce things in change, without being himself in change. By analogy, I thought that the teacher who teaches, he knows his subject perfectly. When he teaches, he does not change as a teacher, as knowing. He knows, you know. But he makes other move, you know. Okay. Okay. Now, page 133. So motion is compared to a line segment. You know, if you go to your memories and in geometry, what is a line? A line is a series of points, of points that have no limit. No limit. In fact, a line by itself has no limit. A line by itself goes to the infinite and minus infinite. A line is illimited. So if I want to limit a line, I would put two dots, two segments. And now I have A, B. In fact, what we call a line is a segment of line. A segment of
That means there's a start and there's an end.
yeah. And that limit cannot be done by the line itself. It's not the line itself, it is no. The line by itself is infinite, indefinite. But it is some cause who will determine. So the line will pass from potency to be in act 2, A, B. That is a line in act. Otherwise, the other is pure in potency. So that is what we say here, line of segment. I continue. The extension of the line segment is related to its terminating point, A and B. It is itself a composite. In the line, you have a kind of matter and form. The line itself is indefinite. The line itself is indeterminate. And what is the characteristic of matter? To be indeterminate. So when I have a A, B, that is the form. I determine, see? And I determine the point. So I have a line, AB, because I fix the limit. I fix the limit. I fix the limit. So the line segment is also finite by reason of initial A, final B. It becomes infinite only one can see without one or the other. If you suppress A and B, the line becomes infinite or indefinite. No? So it is in potency. Any line is in potency to become something. In fact, what is a triangle? A triangle is a
Three-sided.
it is three lines. Line A prime, B, B prime, C, C prime, C first. You know, in fact, every line, it is infinite. Okay? Must be determined. Okay? So this can occur by way of increase, increase. Since no matter what is actual length, the line can always be imagined as without determination. I can always think that the line is infinite, but in fact, if the line is determined by 2 points, or by 2 points here, they are not finite, they are delimited. They pass from potency to act. Okay? It's by a subtraction part from the segment in a fixed relation. For example, by half, with a ratio, 1 second, or 2, 4, 3, 6, etc. They have said that the ratio. The ratio is 1/2. Okay. So that no matter how small the remaining part become, it can become smaller still. I mean, I can imagine all the time diminishing. And that here gives me the opportunity to speak about the Zeno's paradoxes. The paradoxes of Zeno. Zeno was a philosopher in Greece, and he was a mathematician. He said, suppose I send you an arrow, an arrow. I have Guillaume Tell, the boy with an apple here on his head, poor guy.
That's the target.
And Guillaume Tell, According to Zeno, never the arrow will attain the apple. So you can go to war, no gun, nothing will attain you. And that is proved mathematically. Because he said, suppose there is 100 feet between you and the target, the arrow must pass first the half. After the half of the half. After the half of the finally, it will arrive just here, but never will attain you. That is a paradox. Okay, that is, mathematics are not connected to the reality. So that is important. Because he considers infinite as something real. So the bullet will speak here, it will never enter your, because you can divide the line in infinite. Infinite. Okay? Okay. So the application, in fact, what we study, page 134, on the graphic you have here explained almost every kind of change of economic. It can be local, it can be anything. Don't forget, the local motion is the one that serves as a comparison for the rest. So if you look at line here, you have a line from infinite to infinite. We call that virtual, a virtual line. But that line is put into action, into activity, by the point A and B. Okay? Now, if I pass from the point A to B, I have to pass through many other points, other points, before arriving to B. So, in fact, we say all the line segment is virtual in motion, virtual, infinite. I can divide infinitely, but in fact, in reality, I cannot, because you cannot divide everything. Try to use the experience. You take a paper, bend into. How many times you can bend? 6, 7, no more. Depend on the paper. There is a limit to division. Why? Because you are not in the abstract, you are in the concrete. Of course, the arrow, I will not try that. I will not try that. You know, I say, no, don't shoot your arrow. I'll keep that for you. Because that is a good example to prove that mathematics is not exactly corresponding to the reality. It is the abstract. It is not attached to facts. In mathematics, I can suppose any kind of system. Okay? But what is characteristic here? It is in that line, it is a continuum. A line implies that I pass through all the dots. It's the same. Any change implies, if it is a passage, a radical passage, that is a substantial passage. The other passages are progressive. They can be fast, they can be slow, but they are the passage from potency to act. And that is interesting to see that when we study that, we are in metaphysics also. Because what we study, potency and act, matter and form, especially potency and act, we are in metaphysics. The same notion will be studied in metaphysics. And that explains a lot of facts in the reality. Every change is explained by act and potency and act. Every change, every act of will, act the intellect, everything. Why? Because to explain change, we pass from potency to act. It can be in the supernatural level, it can be on the natural level. Every change, every motion, every movement is a passage from something that is not complete, perfect, to a perfection acquired. Something to be determined, like matter, and the form determining. Is the reason why we can write, now, for example, the form of a thing is to the matter, like the act is to the potency. So the form is determinable. And what determines it is the form. I can also continue the soul with the body, etc. We can that ratio that ratio can be applied to infinite. Every time I have a change, I can apply that ratio. Knowing philosophy and non-knowing and knowing philosophy. You know? Being a seminarian, preparing to become a priest, and being a priest, etc. And that is, in fact, what is the form, what is the act, what is the soul? It is what it is determined, but determining. It is the principle determining what? Determining the what is not determined, the undetermined, determinable. You know? So it is a perfection to be actualized. What is the word in English, the meaning of to actual? Actual, what is the meaning in English? That is actual.
Real.
Real. Huh?
Real.
It's real. Huh? It's real. The name, it is in reality. Reality. Rise. Think. It's not only in ear, it is in reality. Rise. So, the becoming is the actualization. More and more, the thing becomes real, actualization, more and more. And when it is finished, it is actualized, it is in act. It is a perfection. You know, a perfection, a determination, a specification, a qualification, all that is the act. All that is the form. You know, we should make a link between those concepts. Huh? A quality is a determination given to something, you know, a determination, a perfection. Huh? And the wall is not paint. I paint the wall in green. The wall is now passing from potency to act. It is actualized as a wall painted in green, you know. And your formation and the acquisition of virtues is exactly the same thing. And the you have a potency, but what is a potency for you? It is your power, my faculty, my mind, my hands, my eyes, my imagination, all that is in potency. That means they can do something. They can be actualized, pass from potency to act. And when we study philosophy of man, in the other class, a subject, act and object. The subject, to attain an object, we act. So what is my power, for example, my capacity of playing the piano, and my power of my hands, will pass from potency to the actualization of playing the piano. Write, you have the possibility to write. You are not writing, but I say, take your pencil and give me your address. So you are in potency to write. And when you write, you pass from potency to act. You actualize, you give a determination, a perfection to your capacity of writing. Now it is, you are in potency to take a break. It depends on you.
Yeah.
It depends on you because passes from potency to act require an agent.